How would you like to earn over 7 figures from flipping websites? Hi, I'm Jaryd Krause. I'm the host of the Buying Online Businesses podcast, and today I'm speaking with Marc Andre. Marc has been building online businesses since 2007. He's built and sold businesses in many different niches like web and graphic design, photography, travel, and personal finance, with 6 different 6-figure exits. His current project is flipmysite.com, where he writes about buying and selling website businesses. And on this podcast, Marc and I talk about how and what it takes to move out of the employee mindset to entrepreneurial mindset and the challenges that we can face as being an employee and how to make that shift, which Marc and I both went through and have some experiences and stories to share. We also talk about what websites Marc started, when he started them, why he started them, and then also we talk about what sites he's actually bought and how much he's made from selling those sites, which is quite a substantial figure from the flips that he's made. We do also dig into what he did to grow these websites. We pick apart many different things from content, authority, revenue to grow these different types of businesses and a lot of the things that he did. We do also touch and talk about Google's SGE and third-party cookies and why the internet is not actually doomed, and some sort of case scenarios on what can happen and how things have been moving along for a while and what may or may not happen in the future with the search engine of Google based on market share, as well with other big companies and search engines too. So there's a lot in that. Big discussion around that, which is fascinating. We also dive into how Marc was able to set his website business up for sale, with how much time he actually gave himself and the things that he did to make them attractive businesses before selling them. And then Marc also shares some of his recommendations to people that are looking to sell sites before they do actually sell them. Now, this is such a valuable episode. You will love it. There's so much we do talk about, but we also do discuss buying businesses. And I have to put a caveat on this. If you are looking at buying a business and you don't have professional help, you must get my due diligence framework. It's free. You can get it at buyingonlinebusiness.com/free resources, and you'll see that on the site. And yeah, it's what I have used, it's what a lot of my clients have used to go away and buy businesses. It's very, very valuable and very, very important if you're buying a website. Let's dive in. Do you have a website you might want to sell either now or in the future? We have a hungry list of cashed up and trained up buyers that want to buy your content website. If you have a site making over $300 per month and want to sell it, head to buyingonlinebusinesses.co/sell your business, or email us at info@buyingonlinebusinesses.com, because we will likely have a buyer. Details are in the description. Marc, hi, thanks for coming on the pod. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, you're so welcome. So yeah, you've been flipping sites for a while. When did you start flipping sites?
Yeah, so I started my first website in 2007. I had a full-time job at the time. I was an auditor for a finance company, and I kind of got started. I had done some small websites, like web design work for family and friends, just setting up really basic websites. And I was just looking for basically a side hustle to make some extra money. And so I was interested in picking up some other clients. Like I said, I'd done some friends and family, but I didn't really, have a way to branch out beyond that. So I set up a little like portfolio website with information about my services and like showed off my crappy web design skills. And but I knew I couldn't rank for web design or website design or any competitive terms with just a little portfolio site. So I started a blog and published articles and attempted to get traffic that way, and it actually worked. I did start to get a good bit of traffic. I was kind of trying to learn whatever I could about social media and SEO, and things did take off pretty quick. I did land some clients, and I realized pretty quickly that I enjoyed working on the blog more than I enjoyed the client work. And so I kind of shifted my focus a bit. Instead of really trying to get leads through the site, I put ads on the site and monetized it that way and grew the site. I wound up leaving my full-time job about a year and a half after I started this. It was in late 2008. I left my full-time job. And so it's been almost 15 years now. I've been working on different sites. So I wound up selling that site in 2013. And since then, I've had a number of other sites, a few photography blogs. My wife and I did Amazon FBA for a couple of years. I had a finance blog that I sold earlier this year. I went back and did some more stuff with web and graphic design. I had two sites that I sold together just a few months ago. Those two were the only ones that I purchased. It was two graphic design blogs. The other stuff was all stuff that I'd started from scratch. So I've had over the years 6 different exits that were in the six-figure range. I've never had anything huge. I've never had any exits over $1 million, but six somewhat substantial ones. And I think the total selling price of those businesses is like $2.2 million or something like that.
Cool. Congrats, man. Congrats. So was your reason of getting on the internet and starting these sites just to get out of your job?
Initially, I really wasn't planning or looking to get out of my job. I was really just looking for a way to make a little bit of extra money on the side. I was in basically an entry level job, and living in the Philadelphia suburbs at the time, and just didn't have a lot of extra money, and so I just wanted to some extra spending money. But once I started to see some progress and like I started to see results, I did change my mentality pretty quickly. Like once I started to see some results, I was like, I really think there's potential here to do something more significant than just a little side hustle. And so at that point, then I really did get serious about it. And for that year and a half that I was really working on stuff before I left my job, I was focused on getting out of my job because I had a number of frustrations and different. It wasn't just that job, but jobs before that. Like I just wasn't getting ahead in my 20s like I thought I would, and so I saw that as well, if I can't get the job that that I really want, then maybe I can create something myself.
Yeah, it's good, man. It's so interesting this just to chat to different people about it. Like when we're in employee mode, we have a very different mindset. And I've got a bunch of friends that are employees, and the mindset is so like I find our mindsets like are like going further apart in terms of like life, but then I've got some friends that are following like leaning more towards that path, and it's very interesting to talk to people about like you know leaving work and how their view on the world has changed, and understanding that like there's nothing wrong with being an employee. Like I've done it for a long period of time as well, right? I was a plumber. I'm not sure if you know much about my story, but yeah, I used to be a plumber and just hated it, and then realized that I was the same, not getting ahead, and I wanted to in my 20s, and realized that I needed to buy assets to build wealth, and it's a totally different mindset. How did you? What was the evolution of you changing from like, oh, I just want some extra money, to realizing, oh, like I actually want to like have more control over my life and build wealth. Like, what were some of the things that you learned through that period and that shift?
Yeah, I think I'd always been like pretty focused and driven. I worked hard, um, but like you said, like I had an employee mindset, which um, again is fine. But I was focused. I wasn't focused at all on like building a business. I wasn't focused on like I was told, when I was young, work hard, find a company that you want to, work for your whole career, work hard, work your way up, be patient. And, I was working hard and things just like were not falling into place. Like there would be, an opportunity for a promotion and I would be qualified for the job, but then they would wind up hiring somebody from outside the company. And, it was just like things like that happened a few different times. And there was, in my last job, I had a boss who she was really nice and she was good to me, but she wasn't very good at her job. And like people at her level, her peers didn't respect her. And like they would come to me, her subordinate, because they didn't think that she could get her job done. And so I basically felt like I kind of carried her for 2 years And then they eventually fired her. And the moment that her boss told me that he was firing her, he had already hired somebody, already hired her replacement. And like, so there's never even any consideration of like, of me being qualified for it. So it was like, well, if I did a lot of her job for 2 years and the position comes open and I'm not even considered for it, then, I probably don't have much of a future here. And so once that happened, I was already working on my blog at that point. I was a few months in, and that was like the final. I don't know if the thing that just really like said, okay, like this is I'm definitely not going anywhere here, and I think I have something else on the side. So that really kind of was a turning point for me, like with motivation of like, okay, now I need to get there faster because um, I want to get out of this place pretty quickly. So.
Yeah, that's a good story. Thanks for sharing. I think a lot of people listening are in a similar position where we realize like, damn, like I'm just like a number and just like a cog in the wheels of this business, and the care factor, I mean, of the overall, like, the company is not as much for, there's not that much care for the humans. Like what I've realized is like I I I what I don't like about the employee promotion structure is that I think companies feed on people's egos a lot with like, oh, you can get a promotion, and we feel good about having a higher status in our role. But what we actually do is we take on more responsibility with little amount of extra income, and we get like sort of pigeonholed into this like high status role, but with way more stress, way more responsibility for not that much more value. I noticed that like I went from being an apprentice plumber in my third year, and somebody got kicked off the job site. The guy that was running it, and I'd been working for this company for like 3 months, and I was pretty green. And they said, "All right, you've got to take over the job and finish it off." I was like, "Okay, cool." And I had to sign the job off, and I was like looking at the forms and stuff that because I completed the job, right? Like I was probably 19 or 20 at the time, and I had a 40-year-old trade assistant with me, and then another 19-year-old apprentice who was like a first year apprentice who basically wanted to like take my role and thought he was better than me at the time. But the trade assistant was awesome. He's a really awesome, amazing human. And so I had to sign this job off, and I said to the boss, I was like, look, I can't, like, this is illegal. I'm an apprentice. I need to be a fully qualified plumber. And then I asked to be promoted, and they're like, yeah, cool, you can be promoted, but we're not going to pay you much more because you still technically need to, like, do your fourth year and your studies and stuff like that. And I was like, you don't, like, as long as I can give them what they want, they'll just give me more responsibility and social status and not care. And I see a lot of my friends who are now saying, no, I don't want a promotion in my job because like it's more stress with very little um, reward for it. So I think a lot of people listening are in that boat and wanting to get into this game of online business. So you started a fair few, Mark. Why did you make the transition to buy one? Like, what caused you to go, hey, I want to buy these? Because you bought two now.
Yeah.
What was that decision based on?
A lot of it was because I was already familiar with the sites and with
Yeah,
I bought them from the same person. Both sites were from the same seller.
off market.
Yes. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. It was just someone in my network, and actually the first one was bigger. The first one I paid 100,000 for, and the second one I paid about 12. I think it was like 12,700, something like that.
Mm, mm,
Um, And for the first one, I had actually been doing freelance work on that site for like a year. So I had been basically it was a very passive owner who didn't has bigger things going on and didn't want to be very involved in the site. And so
mm,
he hired me to run it. And it was a blog, so it was mostly writing content, but it was also doing keyword research and choosing affiliate programs to go after and updating a lot of content, deleting some old content because the site had been around a while. Um, so I had worked on it for a year as a freelancer, and he was looking to sell, and um, I don't think if I hadn't had that opportunity at like behind the scenes as a freelancer, I don't think I would have bought it, because I had basically been running it almost as if it was my own. So, I could see what it made in the affiliate commissions. I didn't have access to the ad revenue, but he told me what it was making. But I could see, I had all the access to everything in WordPress, analytics, Search Console, everything for a long time to really get comfortable with it and to see the opportunity there.
Mm.
So yeah, it's really was just like I felt like it still had a good bit of room for growth. And also, I was doing about 10 hours a week of freelance work on it. And if he sold it to somebody else, I would have most likely lost that work too. So that probably played a little bit of a factor in it. But basically, I just saw like, I think there's a chance I could improve the site. I knew I would flip it. I didn't think I'd flip it quite as fast as I did. And maybe I should have held on to it a little bit longer, but I wound up having it for a little bit less than 2 years.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Congrats on that acquisition. I think it's just a wise one, right? It's a very wise acquisition when you can see that, all right, you're basically running this business for a certain period of time, and if you were to be the new owner, or you'd probably see like downfalls and then opportunities for growth and things you could do differently that you've probably been thinking about for a while, that you could just go plug straight into the business. So what was some of those things that you went and did to build that site up before you flipped it? Like, what are some of the strategies you implemented?
Yeah, I did a full site audit. The site had, I think, probably
First.
around, yeah,
Yeah.
first site right away. I did a full site audit. Had around 700 blog posts on it. Some of them were pretty old. Some of it I had cleaned up, while I was still like freelancing on the site. But I did a bit of a deeper dive. Once I bought it, I wound up deleting a good bit, redirecting, and and then I identified a lot of content to update. And so the main thing I did on that site was focus on content because it did have had some age. It had a decent domain authority. I didn't do any link building because it did have a decent link profile already. Um, so it was pretty much all content, and it was probably fairly evenly split between updating existing content and creating new content. And so for the new content, I did write some of it myself, but I mostly outsourced it to freelancers that I hired on Upwork. And I did all of the content strategy, keyword research. So I would give the freelancers um, the topic to write about. I would, in most cases, I would outline the articles because I wanted them to highlight certain affiliate products and stuff. So it was a little bit more time consuming for me, setting up those outlines and stuff. Whereas, some people who own the site would outsource everything. I was definitely more hands on, but I've always been pretty hands on with my sites, and I like it that way. I don't, work with a ton of freelancers on that site. I think I had like 4 different writers, and they would all do like one blog post a week. They weren't, putting in a ton of time. So it was really just focusing on content. There was one affiliate program that was like the top affiliate program I really like, doubled down on that particular program, and most of the content, or a lot of the content, was around stuff that allowed me to promote that. And I did find another affiliate program too that I created a lot of content around. So it was really, focusing in on the key affiliate um, income, and that really boosted up the affiliate revenue a lot. So when I bought the site, it was bringing in between 3,000 and 3,500 a month total, and most of that was ad revenue. And there was, I think, less than $1,000 a month affiliate stuff. It was maybe like 600-700 a month in affiliate revenue. And about a year later, the affiliate revenue on a good month was up to like 6,000, 7,000.
Cool.
So it was
Cool.
really the ad revenue went up a little bit, but the affiliate revenue really went up a lot.
Yeah, definitely from focusing on that, that main affiliate program, and increasing content around that, or updating content around that. And talking about updating content, What are some of the things that you like to do when you are updating content? Or first of all, how do you identify which content needs updating, why, and then like what's your sort of typical
Yeah.
process on updating it?
So a few of the reasons I would update content, one is just being outdated. So especially on that blog being web/graphic design, a lot of the web design stuff, gets outdated real fast. So
Mm-hmm,
pretty
mm-hmm,
much anything from 5 years ago or more is probably not really relevant anymore. And so if an article had traffic, or if it had potential to have traffic and it just needed updated, just because it was no longer relevant. In some cases, it would just be maybe a few small details that needed to be updated. In other cases, just totally rewritten. Um, and there were a number of those that were totally rewritten, and I just used the same URL, but really everything about the content was changed. Um, Another thing I did dive into, analytics and Search Console, and really, like say an article is ranking at the bottom of the first page of Google for a target keyword. To me, that's a really good opportunity to update and improve. If
mm-hmm.
that article isn't already optimized, if you can go from say ranking eighth to ranking third, that's going to be an exponential growth.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Even fifth to third is probably going to really have a big
Mm-hmm,
difference. And
mm,
I had really good success with those posts, those URLs that have been out there for several years, updating them and like quickly getting traffic as opposed to new content. And new content did do pretty well in a lot of cases, but the older content is generally you can get faster results with it. Yeah, so really it was identifying content that was just outdated and finding ones that I thought had potential to drive more traffic. The other thing I guess would be um, posts with like buyer intent for like affiliate programs. So if there was an article I thought was maybe it wasn't really driving traffic, but I think there's a chance for me to improve it and throw in some affiliate promotions in there, then I would work on that too.
I love it. Just for people listening, buyer intent means finding keywords or titles that are where people are closer to purchasing that product versus they're just in the discovery phase of thinking about, like, I might need to solve a problem and they don't know what the product is yet. Buyer intent is like, they're already looking for that product to buy, basically, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
in,
It's like if the search indicates that they're closer to making a purchase than just looking for information. Like
yeah,
maybe it includes a product name, or uh, an example would be like a comparison, like X versus Y, like two different brands or something like that. If someone's searching for that, they're obviously interested in trying to figure out which product is better and which one they should buy. And so they have
absolutely.
a little bit more interest than like your informational how to do this, or those types of articles.
Yeah. Talking about information versus high bar intent affiliate pieces, do you split the different, like, did you, when you were updating these, do you think, all right, I need to not just focus on affiliate, like let's do some informational as well? And if so, what did that look like, and why did you, yeah, what was your motivation
Yeah.
around making
So
sure you kept
initially,
focused
I
on the
really
right?
didn't. Initially, I really didn't focus on that too much, and I wound up creating a lot of content, whether it was new content or updated content, that was really affiliate heavy.
Mm,
And then as Google started doing the product review updates, and it seemed like they were really, I don't know if coming after is the right word, but kind of coming after affiliate sites. That's how
yeah,
it feels a lot of times.
yeah.
Um, so fortunately, I didn't get hit with any of that stuff, but it did make me reevaluate and intentionally put just informational articles that had really no affiliate links, or maybe just a few affiliate links rather than a bunch. And so towards the end, like the last 6 months to a year that I owned the site, I was trying to keep it probably about 50-50. Whereas, I was trying to do about half of the articles that weren't real affiliate heavy, because I did, after there was a core update, it was, I think it was December of last year, 2022.
Yeah.
There
There
was
was like
an
5
algorithm.
updates throughout the end of the last year, 2023.
Yeah, and then again in like January, February, and
Yeah.
I was in like SEMrush and some other tools, like looking at different blogs, different sites in the niche, and kind of trying to see who was up, who was down, who was flat, and trying to see like what trends I can notice between the sites that are up versus those that are down. And the what I could see, you know, it was a limited sample size. I looked at like 20 or 25 sites, so it wasn't huge, but the trends that I could tell based on that small sample was the ones that were doing well were tightly focused. They weren't covering all different aspects of web design, graphic design, web development, WordPress. They were a little bit more focused, and they were also not completely, you know, affiliate heavy. And where like some sites, like all they post is lists and
Lists of
affiliate.
products basically.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
25 best this, 10 best
Yeah.
that, and
Yeah.
it's affiliate links throughout every article. Those types of sites, from what I was seeing, were all trending down. And so the ones that were trending up had a better balance, and better focus. And so that's kind of what I tried to emulate. Um,
That's such a cool strategy. Thanks for sharing that. For people that are listening, I've always harped on about competitive research, but for when an algorithm affects sites and stuff like that, or it comes out, it's worth looking at, like you said, 10 to 25, 30 of competitors that are in the space, direct competitors, go through and look at what they're doing well, see how they've fared out of the changes to the algorithm, and find, find those little pieces of value that allow you to see, oh, okay, these guys have won out of this, and this is what they've done to do so, versus people that have lost out of it as well. So that's an awesome share. With the purchasing of these two sites, moving forwards, would you buy more sites versus starting them, and if so, like why?
yeah, I definitely would. I do have some interest. I have looked a little bit at, you know, some marketplaces and stuff. To be honest, I'm kind of right now kind of curious to see what happens with SGE and AI in the search results. And most of my experiences with content sites. So I'm probably, you know, it would have to be the right situation for me to invest any kind of significant money, until we have a better idea of what's going to happen with AI in the search results. I'm not really too concerned with AI content creation, but I am more curious to see what happens with the search results.
Tell
So
me, tell me more. Tell me more what you're curious about. Like, I'd love to dig into that a little bit.
just like, you know, how AI in the search results is going to impact the search traffic. You know, I don't think it's going to kill traffic, but say you buy a site and a month later, you know, Google rolls out SGE and you're down 25%, which I think some sites probably are going to be, you know, if they're targeting content that can be easily answered by AI. I think there are a lot of topics that can't be easily answered by AI, and Google does seem to be, you know, putting links into the AI generated responses, and so I think some sites will probably be come out ahead. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but it just
That's
makes me a little bit hesitant to invest anything significant, until I have a better idea of how that plays out.
yeah.
Um,
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because most people, most of the, like, this is how people who create media, like podcasts and YouTube videos and articles, get views, is through clickbaity, fear mongering headlines and fear mongering news, where we could lose all of our traffic in a click of a finger. But reality is that Google has had no click search for a while, with featured snippets and things like this. And people have been doing this for 2 years more, creating content that can easily rank high in Google and get up the top with a featured snippet without them having to go through and click through the site. So I'm pretty bullish on it not being as bad as what most people say, the fear mongering meter out there, because I think it's being rolled out at a slower pace.
yeah,
There could be the anomaly where, yeah, a site you could buy a site and it could lose a bunch of traffic very fast. But I just don't think that would be a reality based on the data on how they've slowly rolled these things out. And then I also think if Google was to roll out SGE and nobody went to any websites ever again and only used Google, like they, for example, they use ChatGPT for answers, right? They don't need to go to
Yeah.
websites. Then why would anybody create any content and have any websites ever again? And that means Google, like let's just say that happens, Google would have no update content to put on their search engine because nobody's creating content for their websites because they're not making money from it. So Google would just kill the hand that feeds them, right? So then it comes to the conversation of what you mentioned of how do we work out or maybe create content that you can answer it in a short, sharp version, but it also prompts people to get a longer and better explanation by clicking on a link in Google and going to your website and focusing on that content versus just yes, no answers sort of thing. What are your
Yeah. I
thoughts on
mean, like
that?
I said, I think some sites will come out ahead.
Yeah.
But we just, at this point, we don't really know which sites are going to come out ahead and which sites are going to take a hit.
Yeah.
And I've also seen something that I thought was interesting. It was a month or so ago that there was a report that since Microsoft integrated AI into their search results, they've gained 0 market share.
Oh, wow.
And so that's the report that I saw. I don't know how accurate it is, but Google seemed to rush into in response to what Bing was doing. And so I heard some people say, well, if they're not worried about Bing taking away market share, maybe Google just leaves this in development forever and never really rolls it out. And I think there's validity to that. I don't know what Google's going to do, but if it's going to be bad for their business model, like Google makes a ton of money, they make billions of dollars off of ads on people's websites. And if people are not going to websites, Google is not going to be making that money. And as a public company, obviously they have constant pressure, um, you know, to maintain or increase profitability. And so they're not going to, do something that's going to crush that if they don't have to. And so if they don't feel the pressure from Bing, I would not be surprised if things look significantly different than what it seems like they might. So
Yeah, exactly. Why is Google going to cut off the hand that feeds them and just destroy everybody's websites that's getting money from ad revenue? It just does not make sense to do so. And also, I think a lot of people worry about that with the third party cookie, where people have been like, and that's my same response is like, if Google is going to remove the third party cookie at the start of 2024, which hasn't been much news around it for a while, because it gets pushed back because AI is the leading hype subject at the moment. With good, if they remove the third party cookies, surely they're going to have another more superior way to track people on the internet on sites outside of third party cookies to ensure that advertisers are getting good ROI from the money they're spending with Google. Otherwise, it's silly for them to roll it out. So, but they do need to play this political game as well, like you mentioned, of hey, Google Chrome is a safe place to view websites and we don't collect as much data as, so they're probably going to come up with something else. But yeah, it's just that this is like, I'm glad that you brought this up because this is a lot of people's fears. It's like, yeah, I understand that you've got the fear that things may change as the search engine changes, but that's been happening since the search engine has ever evolved. And will it be as catastrophic as what most people are saying? Who knows? Because Google's going to roll it out quite slow. That said, there still can be changes. Like we've just seen the helpful content update happen throughout the mid to like endish of 2023 here, and that could be more catastrophic than like what may
yeah,
be rolling out with SGE and all third party cookies. So and that hasn't got as much attention or a build up or a lead up to it because it was, it's just another update. So yeah, what do you
Yeah.
think?
And getting back to the other part of your question, sorry, I kind of got off on that AI
Yeah,
stuff,
I
but
was just
you
I
asked
held
me
the
like
mic for a bit long.
if I did buy a site, why would I go back to that? And the main reason is just to cut out the grind at the beginning. I mean, it just takes so long to start from scratch, and you never know. I'm pretty confident that if I really will, put my effort and focus into a site, that I can have some level of success. But you never really know for sure. How much success you're going to have. You can instantly buy an asset that has cut out that first year, couple years, and instantly jump into improving it and monetizing it. So it definitely is tempting. Um,
Yeah, cool. I totally agree. That's that's what I promote. Um, Also, you got people that are great at starting sites, and they realize that they start a bunch, and um, you know, you just don't know how the market's going to fare or what results the market's going to show with what you put out there. And some have a higher ROI than others that don't, and then they end up, they know they'll start 6 or 8, and then end up focusing on 1 or 2. But then you put a lot of that effort into a bunch of other ones, whereas you could just find that one asset that's got that leg up. Now, let's come to the selling part. So it sounds like you sold this within the last sort of 12-ish months, this one that you did purchase and flipped it. And you have sold a bunch of other ones, right? Like it's, congrats on, how much, the total valuation of sites that you have sold. That's really cool. What are some of the things that you noticed that you needed to do to get um, a good sale and present the business as an attractive business for a purchaser? Were there certain things that you did before getting ready to list or sell?
yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing for me has been preparing ahead of time. Like, I, I don't usually just wake up one day and say, I think I should probably sell my site. Like the first significant sale I had, I planned basically like 6 months in advance and said, I want to sell the site. Now, actually, maybe even been a little bit longer than that, but I'm gonna, work on increasing the revenue because most sites, I think, even sites that are pretty good, most of them are not really maximizing their potential. There's always things you can do to, uh, or usually things you can do to improve that revenue. In the case of the site that I'm talking about, it was doing more with affiliate marketing. So I was monetizing it primarily with ads and digital products, and I really hadn't done much with affiliate marketing. And I dove into that and significantly increased the revenue in 6 months, and then sold it for a price that I was pretty happy with. Um, and so the other, that really emphasized to me the importance of planning ahead and kind of looking at things and saying, okay, what can I do to maximize profit? And another thing that I learned early on too is, and obviously this, but people buying sites for the most part are investors. They're not looking to buy a full time job, and so like probably the first question I'm asked almost every single time I'm looking to sell a site is, how much time do you put into it? I know that's something every potential buyer is going to want to know. And so one of the things I learned, early on is um, not everything that you do, on a site is productive. Like, if you get into to running a site for a couple of years and then you really look at like how you're spending your time, probably a lot of time you're doing things that really don't, you know, produce results. And so the same thing with that first site, as I was also working on ramping up my affiliate revenue, I was also working on cutting back my hours. And so I had things I was doing that I thought were good for the site, but they really didn't move the needle. They really didn't, drive revenue. They didn't, I could cut them out without losing traffic, without, it was types of content that took a long time to produce and probably didn't really, get any significant results. And so I was able to cut my time pretty significantly. And I think that helped a lot with the sale too, because there's a big difference in going to someone and saying I work, 10 hours a week as opposed to 20 hours a week, or 5 hours a week as opposed to 10. Because they're going to factor that in, as to how much it's going to cost them to run the site. They're probably going to try to outsource everything. And so they're going to say, well, how much is it going to cost me to replace somebody that works 40 hours a week? It's going to cost a lot. And so it's going to drive that valuation down. So I'd say that was a big thing as well. The other thing I noticed is, um, I've sold some sites on my own. I've sold some on a marketplace, although it's been a long time since I did that. And in recent years, I had two sales that were through a broker, and the two best multiples that I got on the sales were through a broker. Um, so I went through Quiet Light and had an awesome experience both times. Um, and a good broker can, in a lot of cases, earn their fee without taking anything off, what you're taking home. So, I've had people say, I've talked to a lot of people that, about selling, and they're always like, I don't want to pay a broker. And I understand that, but what really matters is what you take at the end. If a broker gets you 20% more and their fee is 10 or 15%, you're still coming out ahead. Um, and so I think a lot of people are hesitant to use a broker because of a fee, and then try to sell it themselves when they probably could have done better off and made it a lot easier through a broker too, because a broker does a lot of the work for you. Um, so yeah, so I would say if you don't have a good buyer in mind, or if you don't have a really strong network, you're probably better off using a broker if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's why we sell people's businesses with Bob, is like we have a pool of people that want that certain type of business in that price range. You know, you've already got that group of people that are hungry for it with
Mm,
cash. Why not go to them? And then if you've got, a different bracket of business that, you might want to sell through Quiet Light, they've already got those buyers, like go to those people that have those buyers that are looking for that type of business that you have, because that broker's going to, that's a good way to choose a broker, right? Is they're going to be able to sell that type of business for the type of buyers they have, just meeting the market really in a lot smarter ways. Like you're going to sell your, like it's me trying to sell a snowboard in the desert versus going to a snow hill and selling a snowboard. There's a lot more people that want snowboards
yeah.
in the mountain. Yeah, I love those. I love those growth strategies. It's really awesome, and thank you for sharing that. Did you, when you said you increased the affiliate revenue on that site, did you also increase the traffic as well? Was the trend slightly going up the traffic, or was
No,
just the revenue that increased? Okay.
yeah. The traffic was flat.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, the affiliate revenue was, so by the time I sold it, the revenue was pretty well split between ads, digital products, and affiliate revenue. It went
Mm,
from, um, you know, almost nothing in affiliate revenue to
mm,
the last month I owned it. I think it crossed $10,000 in affiliate revenue. Um, and that was in 6 months of creating content around affiliate programs. And I also went back and added, joined affiliate programs for products and services that I already had in my content. I just had a regular link and not an affiliate link.
mhm.
But a lot of it was just creating content around the products I wanted to promote.
Yeah. Cool. Cool. Um, what are some of the things that you would share with people that are getting prepped to sell their business, other than what you have mentioned in terms of, you know, leading up to 6 months? Is there anything else that you would share with them?
Yeah, I think, from what I've seen, it's very helpful to have a team in place, and whether you're talking about employees, freelancers.
Mm,
In my case, I've never had employees. I've only worked with freelancers. But even if you just have a freelance writer, who you you know have talked to and said, hey, I'm thinking about selling the site. Would you be interested in continuing to work with a new owner? Most likely they're going to say yes, because
I want to
freelancers
keep the
want
job.
work.
Yeah.
So, if you can go to a buyer and say, I have this writer in place, that's a big load off for the
Yeah.
buyer to say, like, okay, I don't immediately have to go out and find somebody to create content. We can kind of just like continue as is. And if they want to make changes later, they can. Same thing, if you're using like a virtual assistant or an editor, if you're selling a podcast, maybe it's somebody editing the podcast episodes, YouTube videos, whatever. If you have that team in place that you can transition, is definitely really helpful. Also, having some sort of documentation, standard operating procedures, or anything, to explain what it is you do on a daily basis and the steps you go through. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. In one case, I had a buyer who just wanted me to, um, record a video, like a screen, like share my screen of me in WordPress. Like, here's what I do editing a post. And it's super simple to create. But it helps them a lot to understand like what you're doing and what they can continue to do to run the site the same way that you're doing. So
Absolutely.
I'd say those things are probably among my top tips.
I love that. With the SOPs, is what I like to think about is number one, not just having a thing of like, here's how I do this, but I would just have a purpose and a reasoning, or we do have purpose and a reasoning on why we're doing this task and what result that can provide, which helps emphasize how important it is to follow the steps during that SOP for that virtual assistant or their employee to make sure they're like, okay, I get how important this task is now, not just do this because it needs to be done. And then also when we create the SOP, is we understand how much work is going to go into it, and do I need to split that, just me recording a screen share into like, if it's going to go longer, do I do 3 screen share recordings over a 10-minute, like 3 10-minute blocks versus just 1 30-minute one? So when somebody needs to come back to the SOP, they can just take that part of the SOP and watch it easily versus having to like scroll through and do it again. Like, I like to think about it as creating an actual course for your employee to set them up for success. And that's our goal, right? Is with all my employees is like, I want to show them what finished looks like, why it should be finished in that certain way, and the result it should get. And when they can make you happy, they make the business happy, and they're happy as well, right? People just don't want a task of like, I'm just going to do this just for, just because. I'm glad that you shared that. Wow, so much experience in selling businesses and growing them, and it's been a pleasure to chat, Mark. Thanks so much for coming on. Where can we send people to check out more about what you're up to?
Yeah. So I started a blog. It's called Flip My Site, flipmysite.com. I just started that a couple months ago after my most recent sale. And so that's the best place to find me on. I'm also pretty active on LinkedIn and occasionally on Twitter. So that's my site is definitely the best place, but those social platforms will work as well.
Awesome. We'll put links to that in the show notes. Everybody who's listening, thank you for listening. Please do us a massive favor and share this podcast episode with somebody that you know that is going to buy a website, owns a website business, thinking about selling it, or somebody that's about to sell a business or thinking about selling it. There's so much in this that will be valuable for them to get their business set up for selling, in terms of growth and a good exit. So thanks again, guys, and I'll speak to you soon.
Hey YouTube watcher, if you thought that video was good, you should check out this video here on the 2 best types of websites beginners should buy. Or check out my playlist on how I made my first 100K from buying websites and how to do due diligence. Check it out. It's an awesome playlist. You'll enjoy it.